Welcome to the place. I am the Christian, you are the atheist. That's our understanding. It would be boring, very dull if we were to focus on what we disagree on. Instead, we focus on what we can agree on, or at least conversations that we can continue to move forward in a way that, at least at the end of it, yes, we agree to disagree, but at least we can carry on the conversation without it veering off from there. So I had mentioned, so I have this new format for my channel now. I've realized that if I make videos for 2 weeks and then don't make any more for about another 2 weeks, what happens is subscribership goes up and I'm actually reaching more people. So ultimately, I mean, any YouTuber, that's kind of the business plan, is you want to grow your channel. So what I do is I basically binge drop a whole bunch of videos and then give people time to watch them. And then when they start to think, wait, where'd the guy go? Bam, and there's another binge drop. So that's what I'm doing. But I had mentioned I was going through this existential crisis, and those videos are on my channel. Not very popular, but that's what I was sorting through at the time, a couple weeks ago. And I had mentioned, I believe in one of those, that the pastor at my church had challenged the congregation to fast for 5 days. Now, comments were made about that as far as, is that normal? Is that kind of weird, the concept of fasting? So let's talk more about that. And I had even pointed out, if there's someone, in my mind, I think who's good at fasting, Muslims, Muslim people of the Islamic faith, they're good at that. They have whole holidays where there's like weeks of fasting. So then when a Christian hears fasting, like, I guess I can not eat lunch today, right? And if I'm not mistaken, Buddhism is very similar, because I spent 2 summers in Thailand and I feel like there was a lot of people that would fast there too. But let's just talk about that. Let's try to separate fasting from a religion and just look at it from a health perspective. For me, separating religion from the concept of fasting, it's still a good idea, a smart idea, to fast from eating food specifically. Even if you're not fasting from water, but food specifically, it seems like that's a good idea. I feel like in modern day, it's pretty easy for most of us that have access to YouTube, that are watching this video, it's pretty easy for us to get access to food. We're not going days or weeks without food because there's a lack of food. Chances are, if you can watch this video on YouTube, you're not a person who's going days or weeks without food. But I feel that for the most of the history of the world, up until here recently, last 100 years even, okay, right, is that people by default fasted because they didn't have access to food. So there would be days go by where there was no food, especially the further back in time we go, when people were hunting for their food, or if there was a famine and there wasn't quite the crops and they were having to go a couple of days without eating anything, and then when they finally did, they just get a little bit. I feel like even now, even worldwide, I'm sure in China specifically, in Africa, there are people who are forced to fast because of that. But I think in the land of plenty, those of us who have access to YouTube and can spend time watching these videos somewhat leisurely, it would seem that the human body is kind of conditioned for that, and that it's good for your body to kind of have some time to not have access to constant food all the time. Now granted, I'm not saying that's gluttony. No, I guess by default, if you're eating a bunch of fast food, it's gluttony by default. It's an unnatural amount of calories that you would not normally get, and especially if you're having that, 2 times a day or whatever. But ultimately, I totally get it about fasting. Even if we take out the religion part of it, it makes sense to me. It could actually be a good and healthy thing, and especially in modern day, as much as people are eating, and as much animal products specifically that they're eating. Keeping in mind, I'm a guy who was a vegan for 5.5 years and a vegetarian for 7, and I stopped being vegan a year ago, but now it's like I'm moving back in that direction. That's my mindset. So I am very aware of the concept of digestion and giving your body a break from digesting food and that sort of thing. So now it makes sense though. Add religion to that, it makes a lot of sense. You take away food and you focus more on your faith, whether it's Christianity or Islam or whatever it might be. So I'm asking you, as an individual atheist, what your thoughts are on fasting. Do you think that's some kind of dangerous thing for a person to go days without eating? Because ultimately, Christianity definitely endorses fasting. Jesus specifically, that was one of his things, talking about fasting. He was talking about there's one demon that couldn't come out of a person unless there was fasting and praying. So when I think of Jesus, I think of someone who openly promoted fasting. Christianity openly promotes it. Islam openly does. But even if you take away religion, do you see fasting as a bad thing, or can you perceive the health benefits of it? Your comments belong right here.